FOS TV is brought to you by the Lion's Den. The Den always has been and always will be about enjoying family and friends in an environment steeped in Happy Valley tradition. So come back to the Den, the perfect place to recall old memories while creating new ones.
Mark Brennan from FightOnState here for the weekly Joe Paterno press conference wrap, joined as usual by Pat Boland of ESPN Radio 1450 here in State College. Pat, some pretty big news out of Joe Paterno's press conference today.
I didn't hear that. Could you repeat that? I didn't hear that.
Coach, do you intend to return for the 2011 season, was what Joe was asked.
I'm looking forward to coming back, is what he said. And I think that, to the shock of no one, he said he's coming back, and I don't think the announcement will be made anytime soon, the way Joe has always approached that type of question.
I think that, I don't know that it was shocking, but I think the interesting part of it was how definitive he was. He seemed to think that this team is a young team. He's looking forward to seeing it grow and get better and do some good things in the future, and he intends to be here. If you can't tell, we're actually sitting where Joe usually sits. It takes two of us to fill the void created by his gigantic presence. For the last one of the year, I figured we'd do something a little different and sit here in the media room. An interesting question again. Corey Geiger with another good question. Joe, will it be your decision? And Joe basically said, "Well, I don't think it's going to be my. I don't speak for the entire university, but I hope I would have a say in it." So some pretty interesting stuff. Leading into the last game of the regular season, a lot of people were thinking there may be some sort of announcement after the Michigan State game that Joe is not going to come back. But I think this pretty much definitively tells us that we're not going to see any sort of announcement after the bowl game.
Yeah, I think that it's probably a month-to-month, week-to-week type of thing. I mean, if Joe's health declines, then maybe the situation will have to be addressed. But right now, he's determined to come back to coach this football team, and I think the fact that next year's team will have a lot of promise is the thing that will keep him moving, keep pushing him forward.
Hopefully we'll have an opportunity in the next few weeks to get a hold of a Tim Curley or a Graham Spanier to see what their thoughts are on this situation. Typically they offer a no comment on this sort of thing. We do know that Joe's contracted through the 2011 season. There have been times this year, honestly, and people have seen it, where he has not looked at his best. He really seemed to be struggling a little bit physically out of Big Ten Media Days. Got better and better throughout the year, but in recent weeks, there were a couple instances where he didn't look so great, but he's saying now that he intends to come back, and we're going to have to see how that plays out. Other news out of today's press conference, Pat?
Well, other news, Doug Klopax on the offensive line may not be able to play. Michael Motti may or may not be able to play. They'll evaluate that later on. It's also going to be senior day, and Kevion Lathan is not going to be with the team. He's going to run out with the team this for his final time. And Andrew Daly was listed as one of the seniors who's going to say goodbye, but Coach Paterno has been working on him. Actually talked to Daly this morning, which is Tuesday, to try to convince him that maybe he should come back and maybe rethink his decision to leave the program.
Yeah, we'll have to see how that plays out. Daly, the reigning Big Ten, or one of them, special teams players of the week. Kind of interesting that, here's a kid who has kind of been a backup, has had a couple opportunities to start, ends up with a great pump block against Indiana. No sooner does that happen than he makes the decision not to come back for his final year of eligibility to leave on senior day. So we're going to have to see how that plays out. He will be on scholarship through the spring semester, I think, when he's scheduled to graduate. And as Joe said, he hopes in the spring to be able to sit down with Daly and try to get him to come back, because he's been a really nice special teams player for them, and he's been a dependable backup in that secondary. When they've needed somebody to step in at either safety spot, he's been able to do it. In terms of Klopatz, Stefan Wisniewski was also here today, said Klopatz, the center, did not practice yesterday. Probably is not going to practice today, which is Tuesday for anybody who may be watching this later in the week. Where if Klopatz doesn't go, Wisniewski will start at center, and that would leave Deontay Pennell, and John Urschel, who played last week, at that guard spot. Along those lines, Deontay Pennell, Devin Still, Ali Ogbu, Chima Okoli, all were late for a team breakfast at the Indiana game. and all were punished by reduction in playing time to some extent, at least through the first half, against Indiana. So that's where Pennell, the Urschel battle, is kind of rising. Joe said today that those guys aren't completely out of the woods yet, but that he thinks they paid their price, and it sounds like they're all going to be given the full opportunity to do what they usually do this week.
Another thing is that the conversation about Michigan State, there really wasn't a lot of that. I mean, this is a 10-1 team, 10th ranked team in the country, looking to win a Big Ten championship. I mean, Joe Paterno praised Mark D'Antonio, said that Cousins is maybe the best quarterback they've seen this year. Talked about the Michigan State running backs, sort of, but he emphasized that this Coach D'Antonio got rid of the bad eggs, was able to establish what he wanted to establish with his program, and they've had great success this year. I think you can tell he has a great deal of respect for what Coach D'Antonio has done over the last few seasons with MSU.
Yeah, I mean, one of the problems that Michigan State always had, in my view, and I don't know if this was exactly what Joe was getting at, but for years they really depended heavily on going to junior college route, junior college guys, and it prevented them from ever getting a real flow going. And I think under D'Antonio, they've stopped doing that and been relying on guys to be there 3-4 years. Greg Jones will be coming into Beaver State, and this is a guy we've seen for the last 3-4 years not only be there but be an impact player at Michigan State. Kevin Cousins, obviously an outstanding quarterback. They have a great running game. There are a lot of weapons for this team, Pat. But I'm not surprised that it was overshadowed, because I do think the driving news out of this was the fact that Joe said he's coming back. Within minutes of when he said that, we had something up at FightOnState. I'm sure our friends at Blue White Illustrated, Nate Bowers in the back, trying to sneak our news here. They had stuff up, I'm sure. A lot of the local newspapers, the Altoona Mirror, Post-Gazette, everybody had stuff tweeted, stories posted immediately. So that was kind of the big news out of this, that everybody's just kind of been waiting to hear what Joe has to say about it.
Well, I don't think you consider it huge news, but I thought all along he was going to return, and that this is the way it's always been. People get all excited based on, I guess, the notion that he is going to, eventually say goodbye, but I didn't think he was going to say goodbye to take the attention away from this game and swing all the attention onto him.
Right. I don't think that anybody thought he was going to come out and say, this is my last game. But I thought he might dance around it a little bit. And you're absolutely right. There's no way he would want to take attention away from the seniors. I think anybody who's been around him long enough knows that that's not the kind of guy he is. But I was surprised, frankly, that he didn't dance around it a little bit and be more vague. He was very definitive that he intends to come back, was joking about it a little bit, had some fun with it. And, along those lines, again, a couple weeks ago, Joe was not at his best at this press conference, but the last couple of weeks he's been very good. And today I thought he was outstanding again. I mean, he had just a real funny line toward the end of the press conference when Neil Riddell of the Altoona Mirror asked him about an old Tennessee Williams quote that I think Joe mentioned, 12, I don't even know, how long ago was that?
I have no idea how long ago that was.
Right.
I forgot all about that.
So Joe didn't remember it. I honestly didn't really remember it. Pat didn't remember it, but it was something to do about Tennessee Williams saying something along the lines of, nobody's immortal, but I'd like to try, or something like that. And Joe eventually got the gist of what Neil was saying and said, I'm paraphrasing here, this isn't one of your columns, accuracy counts. So that was actually the entire room broke up.
And Joe also talked a little bit about how he's a little concerned that the team has a lot of downtime this week. The team is not having classes. He wants to make sure that the guys who are having some academic problems get up to speed with things. And I know some of the players talked about it, that they're trying to maybe get a little caught up on sleep, get caught up on the academics, and you just don't want this team to lose any of its edge.
Am I missing something? And I'll go off topic here a little bit. Why does Penn State get an entire week off for Thanksgiving? And what is going on there? I mean, has that always been the case, or is this something?
No. I mean, when I was in school back, I graduated in '91, we got Thursday and Friday off. And then it became Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and students just took the whole week off. and they got rid of the fall break a few years ago.
Okay.
And then they said, we'll just give you the whole week of Thanksgiving off, so that's why State College is like an empty wasteland right now.
The only worst thing is the idiotic school districts who give students the first day of hunting season off. I completely can't understand that. I have an 8-year-old daughter and don't know why she needs the first day of hunting season off. But I digress here. In terms of the players, the players obviously, Chris Colasanti, who came up and did a really nice job. He's just named an academic All-American. Great news for him. Penn State has 3 academic All-Americans. It's Wiz, Colasanti, and
Pete Massaro.
Right. So that's great news for Penn State, the only school in the Big Ten with 3 academic All-Americans. And Joe mentioned that that's one of the reasons that he wants to come back, because he thinks they're doing things the right way. None of the players who were here today, Matt McGloin, Wisniewski, and who else was here?
Wisniewski, McGloin, and Colasanti.
Right. None of the 3 seemed to be surprised that Joe was coming back, but Wisniewski had probably one of the funnier lines. Joe, throughout his press conference when mentioning Stephen, called him Steve. Stephen obviously has an uncle, Steve, who played here 20 years ago, and Stephen basically said, well, I'm used to it. He mangles other guys' names much worse. And he said, yeah, my uncle played here 20 years ago, but I'm pretty sure Joe can distinguish between the 2 of us. All this was said with a smile on his face, and it was just fun to see that people were having some fun at this press conference, and I think that's good. You know, maybe you do have a little downtime, but you're going into a game against a 10-1 opponent. This is a team that's in Big Ten title contention. And it just seems to me as if Penn State's kind of loose, kind of relaxed going into this thing, which I think is important.
And you forgot the most important thing of all.
What?
It's Land Grant Trophy Saturday. The LGT is up for grabs. The annual series is going to come to an end, but as I've told many people today, the Land Grant Trophy will only be up for grabs every few years. It's like the Olympics. It's worth waiting for, and when it comes, it's going to be special.
The LGT has officially been neutered, Pat. I'm sorry to say, but now that Penn State and Michigan State are not playing the end of the regular season game every year, the power that once was the LGT, the magic, is gone.
You misunderstand the power of the LGT. You can't neuter that bull. It's going to keep on running strong forever. It
weighs about as much as a bull, I can tell you that. But, you know, speaking of bull, we've probably allotted our time of dishing out bull here at our Joe Paterno press conference wrap. Pat, Thanksgiving week, what do you have to be thankful for?
My good health right now. I've gone through a lot over the last 20 months, so I'm thankful that I'm still here.
Yeah, and just so people know, Pat has had some dealings with a cancer situation that has led to his hairstyle, which you seem to be sporting and enjoying a little bit, but things do seem to be going very well for you, Pat, and that's one of the things that I'm very thankful for. Great to be happening, great for the positive things to be happening for you. Everybody out there, I hope you have a happy Thanksgiving, enjoy time with your family, friends, and everything else, and I hope you have a great time at the game this week. Do you have something else on your mind here that you wanted to say?
No, we'll have to do this after the bowl press conference.
Absolutely. We'll get together after the bowl press conference. Thanks, everybody, for being with us all years. We've been around Beaver Stadium from the Beaver Stadium media room, right where Joe Paterno sits. I'm Mark Brennan from FightOnState.com. This is Pat Boland of ESPN Radio 1450 in State College. We'll catch you next month.